Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Wednesday, July 10th, 2019. Thank you for tuning in to the evening edition tonight. We've got lots to discuss. Talk about some space weather, plus a possible storm in the Gulf to get with. But first, let's go ahead and get started over here at the grandsolarminimum.com, where Mari has taken the time to outline all of tonight's articles. So if there's anything that you want to fact check for yourself, we will have the link to every article we discuss here at the grandsolarminimum.com. Let's get started right now. We're sitting, solar wind speed wise, we're sitting at an even 583 kilometers per second with a density of 1.3. Now, we did get a geomagnetic storm earlier, a couple different times. However, so far, we haven't seen any kind of direct result due to the solar storm, so that's a good thing. I will say this, since the solar winds have bombarded Earth's atmosphere, or the magnetic field, I should say, the TCI went up from 316 to 3.27. So that makes sense. You got solar wind, highly charged particles, lighten up the ionosphere, and of course the upper atmosphere as well. So you would have to take into consideration that that's probably why we've seen an increase in the TCI today as well. Let's go to our space weather section here at the grandsolarminimum.com. There's the two spots that we had a G1 magnetic storm, geomagnetic, I should say, early or late July 9th into early July 10th. And since then, we have subsided now to a calm KP of 2. And there is the sun. It is blank. We did have a sunspot earlier in the week, and since then, it has fizzled out. Let's take a look at this. Interesting enough, there's a coronal hole forming around that former sunspot AR 2744. So, but other than that, we really don't have anything to report as far as coronal holes or anything like that from our star. No new sunspots to mention as we look at the whole picture here, and we don't see anything active regions. Maybe a slight chance of a coronal hole development on the eastern limb, right just above the equatorial region. But other than that, space weather from our sun for the time being is starting to calm down once again and get back into those minimum conditions. But right now, sunspots, we are 120 days in a row, or I'm sorry, 120 days for 2019 and 2 days in a row without sunspots. All right, so what's leading up tonight's weather? Of course, tropical cyclone forming in the Gulf of Mexico. This, according to Watchers.news, the center disturbance expected to become a tropical storm, Barry, was located about 170 miles southeast of the mouth of the Mississippi River at 1500 UTC time. The system had maximum sustained winds of 45 kilometers per hour, that's 30 miles an hour, and was moving west-southwest at 8 miles per hour at the time with minimum central pressure of 1011. Continues to talk about the track here. A lot of people are talking about this storm, and I'll tell you something. I was watching a little bit of the Weather Channel beforehand, and I don't really think they have a really sense of what is coming, if anything is coming. I feel like that this is being underplayed a little bit. With looking at the GFS, which we will go over here soon, they're talking about that yellow zone here. That, you know, on the Weather Channel, they're talking maybe 4 to 5 inches of rain. Maybe some areas get 8 to 12 inches. So this is and that's the rain forecast for the next 7 days. So that's wishful thinking. I hope that is the case of what we're going to get. A lot of other folks seem to think that this could be a dangerous situation. I know we'll talk about it later in our broadcast as well. But we were looking at already storm surge flooding in the French Quarter of New Orleans. Now, one thing I can tell you, looking at this image here, this storm, if my eye does not deceive me, this storm is now tracking almost due west, and where we might have a center. And let me show you guys real quick what I'm talking about. Where is there she is, my handy dandy arrow. So I'm watching this area right here like we all are, and at the last slide of this image, it appears that we are seeing a definite motion here. This storm is trying to get its act together and moving west at this time, giving it more time to develop, more time over warmer waters, and that always can lead to intense, as far as it developing rather quickly. That is possible. As Mari reported earlier on our solar update, the waters are about 3.5 degrees warmer than normal for this time of year. So this would not be a surprise. But we'll get more back into this as we continue with our broadcast. But Watchers.news, we're talking about it. Right now, nothing more than just a tropical depression or even a storm at this point. We're not really... There are some indications that it could be a Cat 1 hurricane. That's what most of them are admitting. Some are suggesting this could develop quickly into a 2 or a 3 category as far as hurricanes go. We will keep our eyes and we'll touch base on that here just in a minute. I also want to stay with Watchers.news and talk about the seismic activity continues at Coso volcanic field in Inyo County, California. Now, the activity was triggered by magnitude 5.4 at 4:19 on July 6th. That's about 12 miles east-southeast of Little Lake, which itself has an aftershock of the 7.1 occurred an hour earlier, located about 10.5 miles north-northeast of Ridgecrest to the south. Now this is according to California Volcano Observatory. Of the approximately 1,600 earthquakes detected at 1.0 or higher since July 8th, 12 have been magnitude 3 or above, with the largest 2 registering at a 4.1. The intensity of the activity at Coso is now gradually declining. The current activity at Coso can be considered a distant aftershocks or triggered earthquakes. The M71 on July 6 occurred with a northwest trending fault oriented towards the Coso area, and it is common for large earthquakes to cause aftershocks beyond the actual fault rupture. No ground deformation indicative of volcanic activity has been detected, and there is no imminent threat of an eruption. I'm going to have to disagree with that part of the report, and that's no fault of Watchers.news. But it has been reported that we have a fissure that has opened up 2 miles long, about 100 feet wide. So, right around in this same area that they're talking about, there's no ground deformation indicative of volcano activity. So, maybe he just hasn't heard that or seen that, but it has been reported that we do have a fissure that has been seen. It's a 2 mile long fissure, opened up as wide as 100 feet, I believe. So, again, I brought this up tonight because we're talking about this earthquake and everybody's watching it right now, and so should they. We've seen some minor earthquake activity in Texas and Oklahoma, and we know that there was an energy transfer that needed to take place across the Midwest to maybe avert a possible large earthquake here in Southern California. So far, since that was announced about the energy transfer that we needed, we haven't seen that 4.8, 5.0 earthquake that we've needed to see over there in the Midwest, Texas, Oklahoma, and so forth. And the way I understand it is that we are log jammed right now in Southern California, where all that energy is building up right now. And like a dam, when you start to have too many, or in this case, too many earthquakes and a dam, too much water, it starts to trickle over a little bit over the dam, little by little. And that's what a lot of us believe right now that has happened with these minor earthquakes in Texas, and Oklahoma just had a 2.2 just a couple hours ago. So again, we've seen a little bit of action in the Midwest, Texas, Oklahoma area, but not the kind that we need to avert a possible large earthquake that's being predicted. And, you know, I would love to mention the channel that really gets the credit for some of this knowledge here, but unfortunately, you have to be careful on YouTube these days. They will flag you for some reason if you mention certain channels or even include certain topic in your title. So again, folks, not trying to take all credit for this earthquake report. There are other valuable sources out there that I know most of you watch as well. But to me, this is still a tense time right now. Even though this report here is reporting that the activity is declining, which is a great thing. However, I will say that I don't think we're quite out of the woods just yet. Some are saying we're on watch until the 11th, possibly the 12th of July. We'll continue to watch this, and you wonder what effect that this recent bout of space weather had on our magnetic field and if it's going to trigger anything on the West Coast like some are predicting. Again, this is not imminent. This is just only what people have predicted and with good information to predict that. So we will continue to monitor this. Absolutely. If anything breaks, of course, while we're off the air, we will jump on live to hopefully cover something that is not as bad as we thought. Again, I think a lot of us, and this is silly to say it, but I think a lot of us are hoping for that 5.0 in the middle of nowhere in Texas or Oklahoma. Like somewhere out in some field, some minor city that's not populated gets a 4.8 or something like that. Now, at that point, I think people can start to feel like, all right, maybe the big one is, out of the picture right now, and we dodged a bullet. So we'll just continue to monitor this as we go along, though, folks. Guys, want to check out the article there about that? Check it out on watchers.news. So, strong tornado hits Milano Marittima in Italy, giant hail in Abruzzo. Now, busy day here in Italy because I also had another article that talked about the hail injuring people as well. But according to ANSA, one woman was hurt and taken to the hospital. She had non-life-threatening injuries. Trees were down, including 200-century-old marine pines, road signs, billboards, and other hoardings as a tornado ripped through the town. Several streets were closed in the area. The whole area has been devastated, it reported. Numerous cars were destroyed. I mean, take a look at this, guys. That's some serious winds. Very, very large trees. These cars are mangled. These trees were blown over, roots and all. This isn't typical tornado where you see these trees snapped off at the top here. Wow. Let's take a look at some more footage here. There is the tornado. Hail size of oranges hit Abruzzo. That's right, folks. Hail the size of oranges hit Abruzzo, Italy on July 10th, injuring 18 people, including a pregnant woman. All victims were taken to the town's emergency room with bruises and other injuries, mainly to the head. And it was also reported the ones that had injuries to the head were dealing with stitches.
Bruises and Abruzzo, huh, Tate?
Bruises and Abruzzo, and stitches. Thanks, Mari, for pointing that out. Don't know what I'd do without you on these certain topics. Anyway, gotta love her, folks.
Sorry?
Gotta love her. What else you gotta do, right? Unfortunately, we have more footage of people trapped in their car in flood waters, just like we saw the other day with the brake lights. Folks, it's cheesy, but turn around, don't drown is the only message that you need to remember when it comes to floodwaters like this. And it'll be a miracle if there is, and there is, you can see the brake lights, there's people in the driver's side. So hopefully they get nudged up against a tree, but that right there is a dangerous situation too with the eddy currents. It could easily pull the nose of that vehicle down. Thankfully, just drifting slightly down the road here. But man, guys, I'm telling you, once you start to see that water rising, again, turn around, don't drown. Here is the large hail that fell, orange size, that is. More footage here from the hailstorm. Definitely baseball size, just being flung around. Good Lord. There's the aftermath after the storm. Here's a water spout.
Devastazione ovunque. Quando la furia
Oh,
della pioggia da una tregua.
You might have to view that on your own time, folks. I don't want to get a copyright on that one. Sound like an official report. Here's more amateur footage of the hail falling. Large hail. Definitely orange size. That was almost softball size. It just rolled across the screen. I'm telling you guys. I think it's safe to say that 2019 is definitely one of the worst years when it comes to hail. We've seen it all. Mexico, the freak hail event that happened there. Yes, 6 feet didn't fall, but the accumulations were incredible. They had to bring in the National Guard with bulldozers to clean out the roads. Cars were buried. It was 88 degrees outside that day. All right, guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with our climate news of the grand solar minimum. Stay tuned.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.
All right, we're back and getting into some climate news here. Take a look at one of our lovely t-shirts or sweatshirt combinations here at teespring.com. Link can be found in the description here. NOAA, 12-month precipitation, third month in a row, hits an all-time high. Check this out. Heavy rainfall during the month of June added to another record-breaking 12 months of precipitation. Now, mind you, this has been the wettest 12 months the last 3 months. So basically starting back from October of 2018, or actually further than that. So we have seen, yeah, of course, 12-year period. But from April, May, and June, we have all hit all-time record highs. June precipitation total for the lower 48 was 3.3 inches above average. Ranked the upper third of the 125-year period for record. For the year-to-date, July 9th, the precipitation total was 19.5, and that is 3.74 inches above average, and the wettest such period in the 125-year record. Previous all-time 12-month record was 37.72 inches, occurred from June through May of 19. Prior record, of course, was the 12-month record of May of 18 through April of 19, and this previous June record was 35.11 inches, and that was broken from July of 82 through 83. Above to much above average precipitation was observed from the deep south through the Mississippi and Ohio valleys and along much of the East Coast. Kentucky ranked third wettest, Ohio was the fifth wettest, and Tennessee, believe it or not, ranked 8th wettest for June. Flooding persisted along many of the major river systems and their tributaries across the central U.S., including the central and lower Mississippi River, the Missouri River, as well as the Illinois River. Again, this is confirming what we've been talking about when it comes to increased precipitation. It's now a constant. If we have all-time record highs of the 12 wettest months and we keep breaking it each month, what's that tell you? When was the last time we broke 3 all-time high records back to back to back like that? Each month, we kept breaking the last month's record. And I read that wrong here at the beginning. So, I mean, only at 0.37 above average, ranked in the upper third of the 125-year period of record. For the year-to-date, July 9th, precipitation was at 19.5. That's right now 3.7 inches above average. So July is already shaping out to be another month of possibly record precipitation. And in the map here, in the greens mostly, we will continue to see rain in this region. Especially right here, guys. We're going to start to see it pick up here in Louisiana, not just from this storm either. I'll go over that in the GFS outlook. But there is lots of moisture to come through this region here in the next 16 days on our forecast as well to watch. So I don't see any let up in this area that we have from Missouri, Arkansas, Texas, Oklahoma, parts of eastern Kansas and eastern Nebraska, all the way across the heartland through Ohio, Pennsylvania, into the northeast of New York as well. South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi as well. And that pattern, unfortunately, we might get a little bit of a break, but not too much. And I'll go over that later as well in our forecast for our outlook. And here's an article from worldgrain.com. Now, this is old, from April 2019. But there's some very important things that are in this article here. And this website, as you can see, dedicates itself to farming, grain, all that stuff. All the farming information you want to know in this website. Okay? They want to announce on April, world weather continues to be chaotic and apparently more volatile than decades ago. It is widely discussed and complained about frequently and often totally misunderstood. What it's referring to is the kingpin of weather on this planet is the sun, and no ocean or atmospheric pattern exists without the power of the sun influencing it. One of the discoveries in modern history has been that the sun is not a constant burner, and that there are periods in which the sun produces great heat energy and times when it produces less radiant energy. There is evidence that the sun has been producing less energy since the 1980s, and we may be entering a very rare long-term solar minimum. World Weather Incorporated believes this change will add more volatility to world weather. They kind of go into the history of sunspots and solar cycles and talk about how they've been observing this for over 400 years now. And it raises a question, will Earth cool down? Now, they're only acknowledging the upcoming solar minimum. They do mention the Maunder minimum. They were talking about how that was, they actually admit in this article that the Maunder minimum was long enough to bring down Earth temperatures so that several areas around the world reported colder winters and colder summers. The unfortunate part of the debt is that there was no official weather reporting station network back in those times, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, imagine that. We had to rely on science for this information, guys. Remember that. Had to rely on science. And the science that they used to get that information back then is the same science they use to get it now. And guess what? It all correlates and it matches. So the science to this point is precise when it comes to measuring the stuff from ice cores, tree rings, ocean sediment. Continues to talk about the atmosphere. I'm very proud of this article. Many reasons. I'll get into that here in a minute. The one thing we believe with confidence is that the stratosphere will continue to cool down, and since this is part of the atmosphere is immediately above the troposphere, cooling eventually will reach some of the higher altitudes of the troposphere. Once it cools sufficiently high up in our part of our atmosphere, strong thunderstorms and very deep mid-latitude storms will be able to tap into that cooler air, resulting into more episodes of intensive rain, flooding, and extreme temperatures, both hot and cold. Pretty much the science of these solar minimums and grand solar minimums. The intensive rain, they're speaking of the weaker magnetic fields from these solar minimums, allowing more cosmic rays to create these intensive rains. Some scientists believe this phenomenon has already begun. That explains some of the wild weather that has been occurring around the world. We have fully loaded atmosphere full of warm, moist air, and the only thing that is needed to produce some really extreme weather is sustainable cold air aloft to intensify storms more than we are used to seeing. Bottom part of this paragraph. Oh, wait, let me continue actually. Any one of these phenomena could occur at any time, and that raises potential for earlier than usual autumn freezes and later than usual spring freezes. All of these weather impacts will have a big influence on agriculture, which may change productivity, but at the very least will give more incentive for further development in crop genetics so that productivity will be less impacted by the possible coming weather extremes. Yeah, wishful thinking there, guys. I don't think a lot of people are comfortable with GMOs in the first place. And I get it that might be the only source of food that we have in a potential food crisis that's upcoming. But this article points out things that we talk about that's going to happen in a grand solar minimum. It also speaks on solar minimums. It also speaks about the cycles, talks about sunspots. So this article basically in April was telling all farmers, and of course I just found it today, and it's July 10th, so almost 3 months ago, this was a warning. And I didn't see it talked about anywhere. Maybe it was talked about and I just didn't catch it. But guys, wow, what a red flag that these people are throwing up. And I'll tell you something, it takes a lot of courage to go against mainstream media. You could risk losing your website. I'm sure somehow you'll get attacked by the global warmists. These guys were saying it back in April. Hey, the sun is doing this. The sun is going to continue to change our climate, and it's going to affect our crops. You have to, unfortunately, read between the lines, but the number one thing I want to mention about this article here at worldgrain.com is that it talks about the sun changing the climate and does not mention anything about man's contributions to climate change. And that was really the most important part of this agriculture article. These people, the farmers, they need straight answers. They need to know what's happening. They need to be able to prepare for what's happening. And this article was probably buried, and probably a lot of farmers didn't see this. But my question is, why are we waiting so late for this message to get out? And here's where it gets a little gloom and doom, I guess. Maybe the powers that be want to control the food. So the longer that you're left in the dark about what's coming, the easier it is for the powers that be to control the food. It started when the owner of Amazon bought out one of the largest organic food companies, Whole Foods. The richest of the rich are going to control the prices of our food to make profit. People all around the world that want to cash in on this. All right, so let's shift gears a little bit. And this is not really GSM related, but this kind of goes with our storm that we got coming up. And this is how weather affects not only our climate, but our economy as well. Not just in the crops, but we're talking about U.S. oil companies. Now, this article is reading off, these folks are doing the right thing. They are shutting down several refineries, platforms. Prices did go up today. The withdrawals helped push the U.S. oil futures up 4.5% to $60.43 a barrel on Wednesday, and lifted gasoline futures more than 4% as well. Now, that's the highest price since late May, which was right around Memorial Day weekend. I believe we almost hit the $3 a gallon gas in many parts of the United States. Gulf of Mexico produces 17% of U.S. crude oil and 5% of natural gas. The potential hurricane to be named Barry approached Louisiana. Governor John Bel Edwards on Wednesday declared a state of emergency, warning that up to 15 inches of rain could fall on parts of the Gulf Coast state. New Orleans was under a flash flood warning after receiving about 8 inches of rain early in the day. So this storm hasn't even hit yet. This is the problem I have with the weather, that channel on cable that shows you weather. This is my problem with their forecast on only 5 to 8 inches of rain in the next 7 days. We've already had 8 inches of rain in New Orleans today. And technically, this storm is still just a depression right now. It's not even organized. And we'll have a better idea, too, on the next update at 11 o'clock as far as the track. Me personally, I wouldn't be surprised to see this thing shift to the east a little bit. Talking about more rainfall and all these companies shutting it down. And, trust me, guys, there's a point why I'm bringing this up. I'm not going to get right to it right now. But so here we have the closings of these oil platforms. All right. And then we have this article here talking about oil prices rising. So we have a storm that's heading this way by this weekend. Refineries are shut. It's all over the news now. Oil's going up. Basically, I'm bringing this part up to warn you folks that I think this is going to be a little bit higher than normal gas hike. And the only reason why I'm going to say that, and I really have to jump out of bounds here, because this story was actually saved for the end of the weather report. But as I was going through this, I thought to myself, okay, this has to be mentioned in the same order with these other two oil articles. So here's AccuWeather.com, and look what they're doing right off the rip. Hurricane Harvey's impact on the oil and gas industry hasn't been forgotten. This article is riddled with Hurricane Harvey stats and the importance of the petroleum, the gas, the natural gas, the oil, the platforms, what it means for the East Coast. I mean, this article turns into an oil and gas topic. So to me, we've got warnings from regular newspaper articles about prices going up. We already know they've shut down refineries. And then you got AccuWeather, who's giving you a line of this, article here, just shoving all this information down your throat. And yeah, maybe they are doing us a service. They're warning us, without saying it, I guess. But when they report and say this could be a problem, and you see all the other reports talking about it in the non-weather issue of the oil price rise, on top of the situation that we're having in Iran, folks, I talked about this in late winter, early spring. Prices went up for a little bit on gas. They fell back down. National average, I think, is somewhere around $2.69. We are in peak season right now, or beginning of peak season of hurricane season. So this is where we need to keep our eyes on the cost of fuel for this time. But it also makes you think about what's going to happen to ethanol in the future as well. When we see the crop reports in January of 2020 on how we finished for the year 2019. So if next year's Corn Belt gets affected like this year and worse, what are we going to be paying for fuel this time next year? And I'm not trying to be the scaremonger here, but I'm just trying to raise awareness. There's so many articles in here that are related to oil price rise in so many different sections of the news today. It's ridiculous. From political with Iran, from the storm here, and of course the markets. Always saying how, well, because these refineries got shut down, we're going to just expect the high prices. Get it while you can, I guess, oil industry. And I'll tell you, that's another thing that's going to cripple the industry as well if prices continue to go up. Here we're talking about we need to continue to burn coal and natural gas. And I'm telling you, with the rise in oil and everything else around it, that may be true. I know a lot of states want to, like our state here in New York, they want to ban natural gas and coal and try to make it off of solar, wind, and hydro and nuclear. Now, I'm impressed that nuclear was actually included with this aggressive climate bill that we signed here in New York. It's not yet in effect, but they're working on it. So many factors to think about, really, guys, and I apologize. I know my head is spinning right now. So just take it in one step at a time. We'll leave the links here on our website. And before I go into our weather report tonight, I want to make quick sure real quick that okay, yeah. So before I go into our weather, let's go over to our crop report. And here we have, finally, July 7th, 2019, we have suitable field work for pretty much the entire United States. This is the first farm report that has come out all year long. Thank you, Waylon. He's excited about this too. But hold on to your hats, folks. The fact that we're only seeing 4 to 5 days worth of field work in the first week of July is worse than I thought. This is truly the first time that we are seeing in 90% of the states at least 4.5 days worth of suitable field work. It's July 7th. Now, according to this report, July 7th. We're actually July 10th. They've changed it up a little bit too, as far as they're not reporting the planted anymore, because we are past that. That was supposed to happen during our, bear with me folks, here this good old crop report likes to spin things. You know how they spin it. All right, so now we're not even looking at planted, we're just looking at what's emerged from the ground. And it says here that 18 states planted 92% of last year's corn acreage. We all know that number could change in August. Colorado, you're 100% emerged. At this time last year, you're also 100%. Now, what I really want to see is actual pictures here. 100% emerged can just mean that they're growing. It doesn't mean that they are at the appropriate height or where they should be in that part. You guys also got to remember this. You got less solar activity, more cloud nucleation, more cloud coverage, less light to these crops. It's going to make these crops puny as well. I mean, some of these corn that I see right now in the supermarkets are ridiculous. Maybe 2/3 of the size of usual corn. So I'll be curious to see what it looks like towards the end of the summer, early fall as well. But soybeans situation, most of the corn is emerging from the fields across the United States, even in Ohio at 92%. But again, folks, that just means it's coming out of the ground. We don't know what's knee high and waist high at this point. All we can rely on is pictures from social media. Soybeans, Ohio, still struggling. 88% has emerged, okay, compared to 100% last year this time. Only up 7% from last year or last week's mark as well. But right now, it looks like Ohio is the only state that is struggling with their soybean crops at this time. So we will continue to monitor these crop reports as they continue to come out. We also know that wheat planting could be delayed as well from the delayed planting in the Corn Belt, soybeans, and everything else. So lots to keep up with for the rest of the grow season and into fall and into this winter. Weather is continuing to show its intensity. Right when you think you're getting a break, it flexes its muscle again. Guys, stick around. We'll be right back after this quick break.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.
All right, let's go into the weather section here. Earlier today, we had severe thunderstorms and heavy rain across parts of Kansas. The storms came through at 8 a.m. this morning, 70-mile-an-hour wind, ping-pong size hail. We had some flooding as well, several inches of rain. I think we had around 3 inches, if I'm not mistaken. Just part of what we had to wake up to today here across the Midwest. Thank you, Caress, for that lovely commercial. All right, somebody paid the bills. And this was also storm surge. Now, we'll talk more about the storm surge, right? Parts of New Orleans is already flooded today, before the storm's even here. There's quite a lot of water in the streets of New Orleans on Wednesday morning thanks to intense thunderstorms that prompted the National Weather Service to issue a flash flood emergency. They're already in a state of emergency right now. This guy's got it together here. He's got a canoe. This guy shouldn't even be driving, to be honest. But look at the rain already. Look at the water accumulation. And folks, we're not even... this is not from the storm yet. This is just thunderstorm activity that's around this system. It says here, those scenes offer a preview to what's to come later this week when a tropical depression projected to turn into Hurricane Barry makes landfall on the Louisiana coast as a Category 1, dropping as much as 2 feet of rain on some parts of the state. Finally, somebody's admitting that we are going to get clobbered here with rain. Because what I was watching earlier today on that cable weather channel, they're talking about 5 to 8 inches of rain in the next 7 days. And really, I feel like they're kind of half-assing this forecast, to be honest with you. I'm going to say it right now. Let's not wait for Katrina-like conditions to develop. I think tonight's 11 o'clock report is going to mean a lot. If this storm shifts back a little bit further to the east, that means the eastern part, the worst part of this hurricane is going to go right over New Orleans. Let's go right into the GFS and talk about where they've got this storm lined up. And I think in the coming hours, we'll see where this storm is tracking. Let's move this up a little bit. So here we are early tomorrow morning. The storm is getting its act together a little bit more according to the GFS. And I'm going to go with the GFS because it's always the lighter one. But the GFS forecast is a little more impressive than I thought it would be. By Friday, this system is getting stronger and getting its act together even more as it begins to drop its pressure. And this thing kind of wobbles back and forth. And folks, I got to tell you something. I'm going to go back a couple clicks. This is Saturday. One step forward, one step back, and then this thing really intensifies on Saturday. Pressure dropping to 983. I think we get to 986 right here. This is the latest GFS reported forecast. Let's zoom in. This is for Sunday. What did I say? The worst part of this storm is going to be right in the New Orleans area. And already seeing storm surge. We've had 8 inches of rain today. Again, I feel like this is on Sunday still. So we start to see some major rains from this storm probably on Saturday around New Orleans. This thing really gets a churning in the ocean Friday. And then Saturday, really, we have a hurricane. More than likely, we have a Cat 1 right here at this point on the 13th. Lots of rain from Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee. That'll continue into Sunday. Am I looking at this right? My eyes playing tricks. Okay, good. That was just a high pressure. Thought I saw snow in Colorado. So here we are Sunday. Lots of rain coming down. Slow-moving storm. Makes landfall. The eastern part of this right now is right over New Orleans. They're already flooded. This thing kind of hangs around for a little bit, finally moves out a little bit Sunday overnight into Monday morning, and that's when the storm really begins to weaken. But most of Mississippi now, look at this low pressure system, kind of just right in the Mississippi River as it arrives, landfall. Look at that. Starts at the mouth, moves up north. Still lots of heavy rain in the area. By Monday, this thing is just now lots of thunderstorms and tropical moisture still hanging around through Mississippi on Tuesday. And this storm finally, I think it attempts to leave our United States around the 17th. Its high pressure is pushed off into the ocean. Tropical moisture still across the eastern part of the United States. And finally, that storm is long gone by July 18th. But the problem that remains here for us in this region is not just these next couple of days with this storm. But let's fast forward here to Louisiana. Let's take a look at your rain chances. So the 15th, you're raining 16th, you're raining. 17th, we're still got rain. A little bit of a break, but there's a high pressure system out here just off the Carolinas into the Atlantic, and that's what's driving this rain almost like in a conveyor belt. Here we are on the 18th, more scattered rain showers. A little bit of a dry spell, but then more rain showers again that evening on the 19th going into the 20th. High pressure finally moves way out into the Atlantic on July 20th. We begin to dry out from New Orleans before the 21st into the 22nd. More rain develops from this low pressure system that's being fired off of the East Coast. Meanwhile, there's another high pressure system trying to settle over the Midwest, which will grab a hold of this moisture and just spin it around again in this conveyor belt. As you guys can see, New Orleans is still raining, and finally by the 23rd of July, a little bit of relief. Nope. More scattered showers to the region, 24th. Along the coast through the 24th into the 25th of July, and more rain scheduled for the 26th. So what is driving all this moisture? And it's kind of simple. And I'll go back fast. I'll reverse it here a little bit. So we have this area of high pressure right here that will continue to move. Oops. No. That will continue to move right in here, kind of just settle. Meanwhile, all this moisture right here, this high, will continue to pull a spinning motion, dragging this moisture in this direction. And that's why we're seeing this rain developing from the Gulf, moving towards inland. And what I mean by that is if you look here on the 23rd, you've got moisture up here, but as we move forward to the 24th, that stuff gets pushed up this way. That's because this high pressure system is camped up over here, now moving the conveyor belt this way. All right, and as you see, when this high pressure system does go out into the Atlantic, this low is what's chasing it out. And by the time we have this low pressure system moving out to sea, we have another high that's going to try to settle again in the Midwest. So really what I'm trying to say here is that this pattern is going to continue to repeat itself every time a low pressure system pushes through. And what concerns me here at the end of the month on the 26th, here's that low pressure system I was telling you about that's being pushed off to the East Coast. And another high pressure system will move down into this region once again, creating probably another conveyor belt of moisture in the northern Great Lakes into New York, Pennsylvania. On the backside, you're probably looking Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Texas. So a little bit of a somewhat of a dry spell here for you folks. Scattered showers now, but for the most part, when these high pressure systems are settling in, this is where you're going to have the most driest weather. So let's take it back here. Here's our storm. Louisiana, you're just inundated with rain from here on out. You get a couple days of a break before these high pressure systems take over. And the reason why this one here is being pushed out, basically, so here's another problem we have too. I forgot to mention this, but we've got high pressure here in Kentucky and Tennessee, and that's really the reason why this storm is not moving out as fast as it should be. It's being kind of blocked, so to speak, by this high pressure. So this could actually increase the rain totals from this storm as well. It just depends on how quickly that high pressure system moves out into the Atlantic. But once we get past this hurricane, July 16th, 17th, or even just tropical storm, we get that little bit of a break. That high pressure system is pushed out to sea. A large batch of showers comes through with a low pressure system. And then here comes another high pressure diving across the Central Plains before it pushes the low off, which, by the way, folks, we're expecting a lot of rain here in the Northeast, in the Ohio Valley, and the upper Great Lakes. Our turn is coming here towards July 18th to the 20th. Lots of heavy precipitation coming to this part of the country. And so far, July could be the fourth month in a row to break the all-time wet record, because not only are we going to get a ton of rain down south, we're going to get a ton of rain in the Northeast and really along the Gulf Coast with those high pressure systems that continue to come in and just camp right here allowing this stuff to just spin around this high pressure system. This high pressure system is dragging in the moisture, spinning it around, keeping New Orleans wet. And a little concerning. So, lots of rain. The pattern is not going to let up. Good chance that we're going to see our 4th month in a row breaking all-time highs. But right now, we need to focus on this storm down here in the Gulf. And I got to be honest with you guys, I don't normally do this. I guess we should wait till the 11 o'clock report. But if this 11 o'clock update has our hurricane, and I do believe we will see a hurricane out of this, but if it has our hurricane right here, somewhere in this area where we see the eye coming in right here, in the eastern part of that storm with the moisture is predicted, I mean, we could see some record flooding once again in the same area that Katrina delivered the record flooding. And it also just depends on how fast this high pressure system gets out of the way. And right now, this high pressure system is holding this moisture in place in the south and in Louisiana. So this could be a potentially dangerous situation, if it isn't already, of course. Some are saying a max of 2 feet of rain. This could be a lot higher. Remember with Harvey, people were saying that too in the beginning. But each day as the forecast became closer to the actual date, that rain increased as well. Now it's already Wednesday. You know, tomorrow morning, I think, should be the decision whether or not folks should be leaving. You wait for this 11 o'clock update. You see what they're going to say. Is it going to be a Cat 1 or a Cat 2? And if it's sticking along the lines that it has been right now, because GFS wasn't showing this, kudos to the Euro model. The Euro model was showing this the whole time. So if this continues to get worse, like the GFS is showing on a day-by-day basis, I mean, this could be pretty significant flooding event down here. Forget about storm surge and wind force. We're talking about lots of moisture being dropped here in New Orleans, possibly causing more catastrophic flooding. So instead of waiting around and making the same mistake that we made for Katrina, hopefully the people in our government make the right decisions to evacuate. The sooner the better. We don't want a repeat of Katrina. No way. And with the advanced technology that we have now compared to 2005, warnings should be put out a lot earlier than what happened last time. Again, we can learn from the past. And that's what this Grand Solar Minimum channel is all about. We're learning from our historical data. Same thing goes with with these weather events. We've seen these types of storms before. Let's act now. And I hope by tomorrow morning, if this storm continues to intensify, we will see the proper evacuations being issued, because at this rate, with the amount of rain that's going to be falling, yes, it looks like the brunt of this is going to happen on Saturday and Sunday, but let's not wait until the last possible moment again, is my advice. All right, let's take a look at now temperatures. We know we already went over those. They're going to be pretty decent for July here in the U.S. Definitely summer-like temperatures, a little bit cooler in the middle of the month. Here's a look at Canada. You guys also getting your share of moisture in the north, well, I should say the southwest for you guys. The northwest part here for us. Mari, I'm going to invite you over. See if you can say hello to everybody and give some shout outs to the chat. I'm sure everyone's been well behaved with Miss Mari there.
Oh, everyone's always well behaved, Jake.
Just say it like that. Good Lord.
Who would ever be disruptive in our chat? Come on.
Who knows?
First off, I would like to say hello to Matthew Bros, our new mod.
Oh, that's right. Matthew, congratulations, young man. Matthew is a good friend of ours here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Lots of insight on farming. It's much appreciated, and we'd like to welcome you.
I think he's our first farmer mod.
He is.
So that's cool.
Yes, it is, actually.
He did a super chat. Yeah, stop that.
Yeah, put it.
You got a t-shirt on the way anyway. So he says that he is wet in Nebraska. Even a half-inch of rain makes things muddy and water runs, making ditches. Everything is still very saturated, flooding in parts of Nebraska. So But I've heard some positive things about stuff going on in Nebraska as well. So, it's not all doom and gloom, right, Jake?
Not yet.
Let's see what else we got here.
A lot of wait and see. I can tell you that right now.
It really is. I'm very on edge about this early frost rumor that's going on. I have it like in the bottom of my gut. I feel like bad about it.
Well, even that agriculture
and just
article.
Seeing how things are unfolding, it's like, eesh.
It talks about early autumn freezes and late spring freezes.
More and more pictures of people sending us empty shelves of vegetables, like in the shop, like in stores. It's like, eesh. I can only imagine what the future holds. Richard Davidson says we are having problems with telegraph weed invading the hayfields. Hasn't been seen there in 60 years.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting? But then he goes on to say, and he makes me laugh, he put telegraph weeds are primarily a Californian plant. I guess it's getting so bad in California, even the weeds are leaving.
Wow. Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm a former California transplant, so I laugh. I kid. I think that's funny. Tugta, her husband is in Houma, Louisiana. Said they had 7 inches of rain in 45 minutes.
What?
No wonder New Orleans is flooded. Yeah, I gotta research that.
And look,
it's just like
that's the problem, Mari. The mainstream's not going to report this stuff.
Well, all right. If you go on our Twitter feed and look at what people are sharing on social media already with the storm surge, what's going on there? I was shocked that Weather Channel didn't even show it.
Nope, didn't talk about it. Nothing.
Why not?
I'm telling you, and you said a bad word, but they were downplaying this so bad, it just made me feel like that I could just go ahead and flip on the evening news and not worry about anything, folks.
We have Fishing Magician from Lake Luzerne.
Yes, Fishing Magician. I met him a few days ago, last week. Hello, fine sir. He is also a YouTuber. He has a channel, and he was actually how I met this guy was through... he was looking for some surveillance cameras. He wants to have a camera in an eagle's nest, and he knows where a golden eagle's nest is here in the mountains, the Adirondack area.
Eagles are thriving right now in this area.
So he's a guy that's in touch with nature, fishing, and so I welcomed him to our channel. I told him about our channel and everything.
Cool.
So nice for you to stop by, sir.
Welcome aboard, Fishing Magician. Jeff Borders says all truth goes through phases. First, it's ridiculed. Next, it's violently rejected. And finally, it's accepted as self-evident. So true.
Yep.
That stuck out like a sore thumb. I was like, damn, he's right. That's like so spot on right there. Andy visited home in southwestern Wisconsin last weekend. He couldn't believe the number of fields laying fallow, and what's planted is scrappy and small. So not good news, but we know Wisconsin farms, out of all the states in America, it seems like Wisconsin's taken like a huge hit when I've looked at numbers of farms just up and closing up shop completely, giving up. It's so sad. Let's see what else. John is in the chat. He's lost 50% of his corn, and he's from Kentucky. Let's see what else we got here. I know I got a couple more.
Camille is in here, huh? Hello, Camille. Camille Hartman.
Oh, okay. So I haven't checked the live chat in a bit, so you can give some shout outs there, Jake.
Hello, Camille. Thank you for watching our program. It is actually kind of awesome that you're here, so thank you.
Yeah, I think her husband messaged us about possibly interviewing him about astrology, astromet kind of information regarding GSM. Always fascinating to follow the astromet people who do the forecasting.
She says hi from La La Land.
I don't envy you in your vacation right now. I used to live in...
Can you take a vacation for a little bit? Maybe get out of that area for a few weeks?
I would go right straight to Vegas.
Yeah.
No, I used to live in Glendale, California, and I'm such a wuss with earthquakes. I just couldn't deal. So, all right. So let's see what else we got going in the chat here. Any chance? Oh, someone wanted you to check Alaska temperatures, Jake. I don't know. Sometimes, do we have a regular show night where we cover, like...
We could throw that in. We could throw that in. I know there's a heat wave.
Alaska,
people are talking about how warm it's going to be in Alaska, and I get that. We'll check those temperatures. We're not trying to ignore any kind of heat or anything like that. There's just so much other things to cover. And I want to make this mention as well. With grand solar minimums, previous records, we've seen periods of really hot weather in Alaska. So this is not uncommon. I think a lot of people get the grand solar minimum confused with ice age and that everyone's frozen, but it's regional. There are areas that still see warmth, and there are areas that see a lot colder winters. So again, that's something we can really dive in. Maybe we should dedicate a show, maybe get somebody on to kind of talk about temperatures in the Northwest during grand solar minimums.
Yeah, I mean, even just an open discussion one of these nights we should do, because it is a regional effect. Climate varies depending on where you are. If you look back in history, I actually shared our Maunder minimum link tonight in the chat so people could see the historical record of what happened back in the 1600s. So, and that's something I'm trying to slowly but surely add to the website, are these tidbits of historical information so you can look back and see what people were doing. A lot of people don't realize the history that aligns with these grand solar minimums. It's absolutely fascinating. So I highly encourage you to just sort of explore on our website. The Maunder minimum probably is the most in depth right now, and I'm going to be working on the Dalton minimum after I finish the Maunder minimum. So, tell me what you think, and, send me some information if you want it added to the site. I'm always seeking out neat historical tidbits. That's all I got, Jake. There's so much going on in chat. I did my best.
You did a great job tonight.
I could.
You did a great job.
I have my little notepad, taking notes. So, hello to everyone in the chat. Thank you for joining us. It's always a pleasure to spend this time with you. And nobody seems to mind the anonymous titles. I just said we can't even put a title on these videos. Otherwise, the Al Gore rhythms.
Algorithms.
The algorithms.
That's what it is. It's
I swear it is.
Look, he invented the internet.
He did.
So if he invented the internet, he invented the algorithm.
All right. Well, anyway, you guys get the hint. Lack of title certainly doesn't keep you guys from coming to our channel, so thank you.
We appreciate the support.
Thank you.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for us tonight. Make sure you check out if you're not a Patreon member, become one for as little as $1, really, guys. We're not asking for the big bucks, but a little bit of donation helps keeps content flowing here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel on our website, and also Patreon. We're going to start putting more content, but we do have a podcast with a podcast called Moving Iron, and it's usually farm talk, agriculture and all that. But he brought us on to talk about Grand Solar Minimum, and we really kind of gave a really vague, basic description on what's happening, what's going to happen, and just what's to come in the future. It's a 41-minute interview. Really, these kinds of talks, we need about 2 hours, but we did it as best as we could to jam-pack as much information as we could. Again, that interview is on our Patreon channel. Check us out on Twitter, as Facebook as well. Until next time, it's going to be Friday night, 9 p.m., and stay tuned for our latest solar updates as well. And if there's any more information about the volcano/earthquake situation in Southern California, we will be sure to break in and report on it. Until next time, we will talk soon, guys. Take care.